Hi, good evening, everyone. Can everyone please stand so we can recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'm going to call up Mr. Scott Stuber, and he is going to do our athletic recognitions.
Once again, I'd like to thank the Board of Education, Dr. Rogers. It's been a fantastic school year for our athletic program. And our spring season capped it off, and I'm really, really proud to announce that 100% of our spring teams were scholar athlete teams, and that makes us 100% of our teams for the entire school year were scholar athlete teams. Pretty hard to do, so congratulations to all the kids. I'd like to first begin with our girls' badminton team. Unfortunately, Mr. St. John could not be here tonight, but he did share an email with me regarding the team, including his All-County recipients. These are his words. I've been coaching badminton for 20-plus years here in Syosset, and this was by far my most talented and hardest working team. As a team, we had 9 all-conference players, and for the first time ever, 5 all-county girls. Selena Chen. Selena was all-county, captain for singles, who made it all the way to the quarterfinals. Congratulations. Amrita Kaur and Melody Ho, they were all-county first doubles team that was 14-4. They made it to the semifinals and placed 3rd in Nassau County's doubles. Ella Zhao and Nandika Sahotra, all-county second doubles team that compiled a record of 14-6, also making it to the county semifinals and placing 4th. Congratulations, ladies. This was a very special year for us. We started our first inaugural flag football team, which had an excellent season, led by Mr. Ray DeLuca. I'd like to introduce Mr. DeLuca. Coach. He's probably outside. This young lady up here was instrumental in starting the flag football team. My predecessor, who's a good friend of mine, said, I don't think we have a lot of interest for girls flag football, and he lied to me, and I called him several times to let him know. They came out in droves. It was an amazing turnout, and they had an exceptional year. Mr. DeLuca.
Good evening. Ivy Matthews. Ivy is instrumental in the creation of the girls flag football team and for the team success that we had this season. She's been a leader on and off the field. She was unanimously voted to the all-county team by the coaches in the conference, and she's the first ever girls flag football all-county player in Syosset. Congratulations, Ivy.
This team will be a force moving forward. No seniors. They're all coming back. Next up, I'd like to introduce Coach Dean Strohmeyer and our boys golf team. Also the voice of Syosset Athletics.
Thanks for having us. We've had 3 boys up here. Dylan Tong on the right, Sawmill Desai middle, Chris Dow on the left. Top 90 boys in Nassau County qualified for the individual championship. It's a two-day tournament. Day 1 on the blue course at Bethpage. Day 2 on the red course at Bethpage. It's a serious golf course, the red. Actually, both are. The top 30 make the cut and go to Day 2. Those kids are all county. So the top 30 golfers out of every school in Nassau County, top 30 are all county. It's not easy to achieve that. All 3 of these kids made it. Dylan Tong shot 77, 82, a two-day total of 159, finished 18th out of 90. Very good. Chris Dow, 81, 79, 160, 19th right behind him. Sawmill, center, made the cut on the number, 83. Tough day, day 2, which is okay, shot 176, and he finished 31st. So we go... Starting to our right, we go 9th grader, 10th grader, 10th grader. So we're looking forward to next season. And these guys did a great job. 3 great kids, too. Thank you. Thank you.
A long time. I've never even come close to those scores. Congratulations. At this time, I'd like to introduce Coach John Calabria, our men's lacrosse coach.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. I have 4 seniors. I can't imagine where they are tonight. I mean, the prom was all the way on Friday. I don't know what happened. They said they were going to be here. But I felt like I needed to come. 4 of my favorites. I was just talking to one of my colleagues and talking about these 4 boys. So I just wanted to come and mention their names just in case you hear them, see them around town. They are some of the greatest boys alive. I'm not kidding. So Zach Finkelstein's going to the University of Texas. Adam Giovinco, another all-county young man. He is probably going to take a year of prep school to decide where he's going to play lacrosse. A big lacrosse family and really into playing lacrosse. Yep. Dylan Stadler. Dylan's been on our team for 5 years. He actually, with COVID and then suffering a big injury, didn't really get a chance to play last year. Came back, had an all-county season this year, and just a phenomenal young man, Dylan Stadler. And A.J. Zuleta. A.J. Zuleta is going to Williams College to play lacrosse. He's like the crown jewel of Syosset lacrosse in the past decade. Just an outstanding young man, and along with the rest of the boys in the team. We managed to get ourselves into the Big Four championship for the 17th year in a row. Lost at Hofstra to Farmingdale, who went to the state final, and lost just yesterday to a very good Baldwinsville team from upstate. So that's Syosset boys lacrosse. The boys, I'm sure, are having a great time, promming it away, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks, guys.
Coach, thanks for walking in off the field. He was coaching even before he got in here. Always coaching. Next up, I'd like to introduce Coach Liz Christensen and our girls lacrosse team.
Good evening. I'm proud to represent Lauren Lamonaco, Mike Murtha, Nina Soto, and myself as the girls lacrosse staff this year. Team went to the semifinals, very young team, and lost to Farmingdale in the semis, but we'll be back with our entire lineup next year. I'm proud to present our 2 all-county players. First is Leah Coffer. Leah is a junior, relentless competitor and grinder on the field. She led the team in draws. She's a physical and tough player throughout the game. She competes on every play and continues to learn and grow as a player every time she steps on the field. Congrats to Leah on winning all county honors, and we are really looking forward to having her back next year for her senior season finale. Caitlin Lee is a junior who has become a leader on and off the field. She is committed, hardworking, and a determined athlete. A born competitor, and was recognized as one of the top 100 girls lacrosse players in Long Island because of her outstanding defensive one-on-one skills. We are so very proud of her and can't wait for her senior season as well. Thank you so much on behalf of the staff. We appreciate all the support this year.
Those are two of the toughest athletes I've seen in the school this year. They keep the athletic trainers on their toes, and anyone who hasn't seen a girls lacrosse game, it is contact. They do a great job. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Coach Mike Spiteri and our girls track and field team.
Thank you, Board of Ed. Thank you, community. We had a very successful spring season this year. Girls were division champs for the third year in a row, and they finished second at counties for the third year in a row as well. The following girls here are all county recipients, which means they finished top 3 in their event at the county championship meet. Yui Hoshino was all county in the steeplechase. We had a 4x800 meter relay of Samantha Mayer, who couldn't be here tonight, Rin Furukawa, Juliana Ragosa, and Yui Hoshino. Samantha Mayer also won the Connie Kulik Award last week, which goes to the most outstanding female senior athlete. Jamison O'Brien was all county in the shot put. Tracy Freeman was all county in the discus. Those two girls will be competing this weekend at the national championship meet at the University of Pennsylvania. And there's also Jessica Alessi, who couldn't be here tonight. She was 2-time individual county champion in both the 1,500 meter and the 3,000 meter run, and also just returned back from a state championship meet where she finished 10th overall, running the 3rd fastest time in school history. Phenomenal season for these girls.
I'd like to introduce Coach Dean Coretti and our boys spring track and field team.
Good evening, Mr. Rotolo, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Rogers, administration, and the Syosset community. Coach Cafiero couldn't be here tonight. He's representing Jordan Altman at the News 12 Scholar Athlete Dinner and Awards Night. The boys track and field team placed second this year at the county championships amongst almost pulling off a major upset. The boys all outperformed their seeds and personal bests in the process. It really was an incredible night for Syosset track. Gabriel Kim had the best vault of his life, vaulting 12 feet for the county title in the pole vault. Matt Robotham was the runner-up in the long jump, an event he just started to focus on. Parker Kim threw over 140 feet to place second in the discus. And Jordan Altman placed second in the 1600 in 4:23. 3 hours later, he won the 3,200 meter race in a time of 9:46, and then anchored home the winning 4x8 team to win by a margin of 0.01 seconds. Other members of that team include John Hernandez, Danny Chan, and Luis Cruz. Our 4x100 team of Nishant Naveen, Brenton Lee, Yamato Furukawa, and Elvis Lee have had an incredible spring season. They have the fastest 4x1 time in school history and have placed first at the division championships, county championships, and state qualifier. This past weekend, they competed at the New York State Championships, where they placed third amongst all public schools, earning them all state honors. The following day, they placed sixth amongst all New York State schools, earning them all Federation honors as well. This upcoming weekend, the 4x1 will be competing at the national championships at the University of Pennsylvania, where they will race against the best 4x1 schools in the country. We also say goodbye to 22 seniors this year. We are so proud of them for their perseverance and the challenges of the last 4 years, and we wish them the best of luck. Congratulations, boys.
Okay, if you have a dark gray Lexus, license plate JLG 2151, your driver's side window's open and it's raining pretty good. Just apologize. It's a first. Next up, Coach Dave Anderson and our softball team.
So our softball team is very, very young. It mostly consists of 8th and 9th graders. We moved up to Conference 1 this year for the first time in a while. And for the first time in 33 years, we got to the county final. So it's, one of the big reasons for that is the two ladies that are up on the stage right now. So Alexa Plavridis. Go ahead, Alexa's a 3-year varsity starter. She's our captain. She plays first base and pitches for us, and she bats cleanup. Alexa hit .459 over the course of the season, including the playoffs, had a .495 on base percentage, had 3 home runs, and 24 runs batted in. Alexa's already committed to play softball in college, and she'll be playing at New Paltz after next year. Taylor Rennie. Taylor Rennie if you can believe this, she's an 8th grader. She's played varsity for 2 years. She's been a 2-year starter. Taylor is our leadoff hitter, and she plays center field for our team. For the season, Taylor hit .547. She had an on-base percentage of .589. She scored 27 runs, and she led Nassau County with 27 stolen bases. Taylor has led Nassau County as a 7th grader and as an 8th grader in stolen bases the last 2 years. So both players have done a great job. I'm fortunate they'll be back next year, and we're looking forward to making another run. Thanks.
The team I'm about to introduce has had a pretty good season. They're led by Coach Shai Fisher. They are Nassau County champions. They are Long Island champions, and I'm proud to say they're New York State champions.
Members of the Board of Education, Administration, Community, I'm proud to talk to you tonight about some of the achievements in the boys tennis program this past spring. We'll start with the 2 boys earning all-state recognition in doubles, 9th grader Nikki Shaw, 10th grader Devin Melandro. Please step forward. Both Nikki and Devin had an excellent regular season, which helped them get the #1 overall seed in our Nassau County individual tournament. They then lived up to that #1 seed by winning the entire county tournament, earning all-state honors. The boys then moved on to the individual state tournament, finishing 7th in the state. They're only 9th and 10th grade, by the way. Congratulations to both Devin and Nikki once again on your all-state achievements. And a little sneak peek, both boys were just named to the Newsday All Long Island team. Congrats to both of them. We had one young man earn all-state honors in singles for the 2nd year in a row, senior Ansh Chada. Please step forward. Ansh has played in our county tournament for 4 years now, with the last 2 years reaching the semifinals. In my 14 years as varsity coach, Ansh is the first to achieve this accomplishment. More importantly are his accomplishments off the court. He's a 2-year captain that leads by example, supports each and every teammate, and does everything possible for the program. Even through a roller coaster up and down season, both from a team and a personal perspective. Anyone you ask, whether it's teammates, coaches, adults, opponents, besides your All-State status, it's your All-American level of character that shines the brightest. Hollywood is looking down and will always be proud of you. Congratulations, Ansh Chadha. Lastly is our team accomplishments. And if you ask anyone on the team, this really started at last year's awards night and team dinner. We had lost in the county finals, and through the night you could see the boys were just disappointed, not happy with the result. I can look back and say that each and every member standing here of the team took it upon themselves to improve over the offseason, which resulted in the deepest team that we've ever had over my tenure as varsity coach, 13-1 overall regular season record. But as the boys would say, the job wasn't finished. They had only one goal in mind, and that was to win a state title. The boys won the first 3 matches in the team playoffs in convincing fashion to win the county championship, a nail-biter in the Long Island championship over Comac, and some amazing wins in the semis over Williamsville East and the finals over Scarsdale to make history. The first team title ever for Syosset tennis. I feel every member of the team contributed to the team accomplishment, winning important matches throughout the year. Some that come to mind, Dylan Apfel and Spencer Keschner over Scarsdale, Evan Lee over Port Washington and Comac, Wilchin Tempson and Ethan Lee over Roslyn, Ian Mehta, Shiv Chadha over Comac, Ansh Chadha, some amazing wins throughout the year, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple, but Devin Melandro over Scarsdale to clinch it. It was truly a team effort. While winning a state title is amazing, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the tragedy that occurred to the tennis community, more specifically in Roslyn. While we've all moved into the acceptance stage of the grieving process, Roslyn is still and always will be in our thoughts and prayers. Our boys will always learn from the game of tennis, but sometimes the more important lessons are learned from the game of life. Things happen that are out of our control, and I'm even more proud of how the boys stayed together, were resilient together, overcame adversity together. And as the boys came up with the slogan on the new uniforms they created after the tragedy, we are all just better together. Congratulations again to all these young men, and 2023, what a season.
I'd just like to congratulate all the athletes. It's been an amazing spring season. It's been an amazing athletic school year. And give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you for your continuous support.
Thanks, Mr. Stuber. Thanks all the coaches. Congratulations to all the players that are going to college and the players that are coming back. Now you have a great foundation to build on. The Board of Ed, we can go up on stage. Okay, we're back. I just wanted to add on to our athlete recognition. One of the things that I thought really was outstanding was not only did they accomplish so much athletically, but then that they were all scholar athletes, and that's a very difficult feat to do. But what I also love to hear from the coaches was that our students have character. So that says a lot. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, we're going to start with our Board of Education meeting for June. I'd like to also start off and congratulate our own, Carol Chang, Susan Falcove, Anna Leviton on their re-election to the Board of Education. As everyone knows, this is a long-term commitment from all of them. They've been here for a long time. They're all volunteers. They take a lot of their time, which is greatly appreciated, and they're going to take more time going forward. So good luck. In addition, the 2023 and 2024 budget passed. So I think that's absolutely wonderful. And approval of the minutes of the meeting of May 8th, May 16th, May 30th. May I have a motion, please? Shani, seconded by Carol. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Dr. Rufo, can you please give us the Treasurer's Report and Foundation Aid Plan?
Yes, I'll start with the Treasurer's Report. As indicated in the Treasurer's Report, the cash on hand for the month end April 2023 was $82,849,239. It indicates that all bank balances for all cash accounts were reconciled to the book balances and were collateralized in accordance with the district's banking agreements and investment policies. I'd just like to briefly go through the district's foundation aid plan. As I discussed during our budget meetings for the 23-24 budget, the enacted New York State budget included a foundation aid increase for the district of approximately $7.9 million, or 50% over the amount we received in the 22-23 budgeted foundation aid. While state aid represents a fairly small proportion of our budget, we're certainly pleased to have received this allocation, this substantial increase. And the purpose of the increase is to bring our district up to our full foundation aid allocation. So in accordance with this regulation that allowed these funds, we're providing our plan for the use of these funds. And all of these programs and services that are included were discussed during the budget process, but we're outlining them again as part of our summary plan. So our planned use of the foundation aid is focused on these 4 areas, which I'll go into in greater detail on the next slide. So the first one is the additional foundation aid will allow our district to focus on those students who are struggling academically, and we'll address that through a variety of means. Our district budget includes allocations for tutor staff to support our struggling students. We have professional development for teachers to address student learning loss and academic interventions, particularly in early literacy. Our budget includes allocations for instructional technology tools, again, to support our struggling learners and to provide multiple pathways to learning, and support with additional cognitive, developmental, and academic resources. For example, we have allocations for Chromebooks and content area subscriptions for remediation, support, and enrichment. We also talked quite a bit during the budget about additional allocations to support student health and wellness. And one of those allocations is to expand our community connections through a partnership with Northwell Mental Health to streamline interventions for students in need as well as families with individual counseling services. In addition, this partnership provides immediate crisis support for students and families, as well as an array of professional development opportunities. We're very grateful to our Assistant Superintendent for PPS, Erin Goldwith, for her persistence and her determination in getting this service for Syosset, given that there was a very long waiting list. And we were notified just a week or so ago that her efforts were successful and that they would be partnering with us for the 23-24 school year. During the budget process, we also discussed increasing our allocation for social workers, and we're pleased that the additional foundation aid enables each of our 10 buildings to have a social worker in-house. The third area of our foundation aid plan is to provide enhanced resources to students with disabilities and ELL students. The district's budget includes allocations for instructional support staff, which includes tutors, teacher aides, therapists, as well as learning loss resources to target specific areas of academic need. We have additional allocation for contractual service to support our special education and ELL students, and that includes additional support for related services such as speech and OT. We also have allocations for instructional technology tools. Finally, we're expanding our instructional opportunities for students. The additional foundation aid will include an allocation for instructional resources at the secondary level to meet increased enrollment in our core courses, as well as additional program offerings in science. The summary will be posted on the district's website in the budget section. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rufo. That's great news. I know we were always waiting for them to get us up on our foundation aid. Is it going to stay at the current levels going forward?
I certainly hope so. I mean, we always, I believe it is the state's intent to bring districts who were not at their full foundation level up to that foundation level, and our expectation is that will continue, but I do know that there are economic factors certainly that play into it, but our expectation is that that level will continue.
Thank you. That's great news. Does the board have any questions for Dr. Rufo? Sure, go ahead. Oh, comment? Do you have a comment? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would just follow up on Dr. Rufo's comment just now, which is that the level of state aid is always intended to be at the just recorded levels. One thing we should probably keep in mind when we're budgeting going forward is I wouldn't write it in in ink. I would make sure that we keep ourselves some flexibility in case of shorter term economic difficulties.
Yes, Jack. Agreed. Anybody else have questions for Dr. Rufo? Okay. If I can, I would like to move up two of the items. Oh, we can. Well, do we have to vote on? We don't have to vote on anything.
I don't think.
We have to vote. Okay. Okay. Can I have a motion to accept Dr. Rufo's foundation aid? Lynn, seconded by Shani. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So I would like to move up items A7 and A8, if that's okay with everyone. Okay. A7 is the appointment of Kelly Morgan for the elementary school principal at Willits. Can I have a motion, please? Susan, seconded by Lisa. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A8 is the appointment of Clara Kang for the elementary school principal at Bayless. Can I have a motion, please? Brian, seconded by Shawnee. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? So, on behalf of the Board of Education, we are really excited to have both of you aboard. Welcome to the Syosset family. You're going to love it here. This is going to be your forever home. One of the things that stood out for both of you was your passion for education and your love of children. So on behalf of all of us, welcome, and we're so happy to have you here, and please do a great job.
I'd just like to add a couple of comments to Mr. Rotola's. First of all, Ms. Morgan, you've led through a challenging time, and you've impressed us all with your leadership and with your development through that time, and we're confident that you're going to be able to provide even more leadership, but in your own right and in your own way, as you assume the responsibility solely for this building, and you build on the wonderful foundation that Mr. Connolly has left for you and that you have been working on yourself. And yes, you do have a little bit of the home team advantage here in terms of folks in the auditorium. But Ms. Kang, don't be dissuaded by the fact that she had a little bit of a home team advantage. You have just joined the home team, and we are very much looking forward to you joining our organization and becoming part of our family. I will speak for the administrative staff in saying how impressed we were with your encyclopedic knowledge of education, but also with how warm you were in terms of your conversations about the leadership that you've given not just to your staff but to students in the building that you've had the opportunity to build and lead. So you both have remarkable backgrounds. You are both going to make us better, and I am looking very much forward to working with both of you in these new roles come the fall, actually come the summer. So you don't get any time off around here, you just keep working. So congratulations again to both of you. And if you were looking for your opportunity to make a graceful exit, this would be it. Or you can stay all night. Whatever your preference.
Please come up then. Oh. Okay. No, it's okay if you do. No, come up, please. Please, come up.
Can she come to the podium?
Yeah, come to the podium, please.
Why not?
Yeah, sure.
She prepared.
I normally make speeches. This way. You can come correct. So I face you. Yeah. Oh. So, I'd like to face the audience, but hello. I normally make speeches just really without anything in front of me, but I definitely would like to do it the right way, so I have it here. Good evening, Board of Education, students, families, and district staff. My name is Clara Kang, and I would like to share a little bit about myself. I'm here with my immediate family, my loving husband, Aaron, my 3 children, Aiden, Alan, Ava, and my mother-in-law, who wanted to share this joyous occasion of my appointment here as next principal of Bayless Elementary School. I was born in Berlin, Germany, to parents both from Korea, who went there for an opportunity to support their family back at home. Their story is a unique story in that they met there, got married there, had my sister and me, and then decided to move to the United States to provide a better opportunity for the both of us. Not only did they partake in their immigrant experience once, but they did it twice. When we landed in Flushing, Queens, I attended public schools in New York City, including Bronx High School of Science. I attended Northeastern University before I had to support my parents' family business. Sometimes life throws you lemons. However, it is what you make of it that is important. Call this my late gap years. It is after that I went back to school to finish my BA and MA as an educator, teaching English in secondary schools at Hunter College and Queens College, respectively. I was appointed as an English teacher in the same district I attended elementary and middle school. Along my education career, I've had admins who recognized leadership qualities in me, and was soon thereafter that I became a literacy coach and continued as an assistant principal. After 6 years as an assistant principal, I accepted a position as a founding elementary school principal in Bayside, New York. This is there where I've honed my leadership qualities the most and continued my pursuit to advocate for all students. I'm here 6 years later, having built my school to completion from 3K to grade 5. What it has taught me the most is what amazing things can be accomplished living by the motto, together is better. It has also taught me how you cannot accomplish this without a strong family support system like I do here and extended to my sister, my parents, and everyone else. It was very evident through this interview process how strongly aligned the Syosset core values are to mine and how much the community values strong family and school connections. I have very big shoes to fill as the new principal at Bayless Elementary School. However, I will do my best to listen to every stakeholder as we're going to start a new journey together, learning alongside you and leading the school with a collaborative spirit in service of our students' success. Thank you so much.
Kelly, do you want to come up?
Good evening, Dr. Rogers, Board of Education. I don't have anything planned. I wasn't expecting to say anything. I'd first like to congratulate Clara and welcome aboard to Syosset. We are thrilled to have you, and you're going to truly love it here, and we're very excited to have you join our family. To everyone here, I just want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart. It's been my honor and privilege to serve you for the last year and a half in the acting role. I'm very happy to lose that word and to really be part of the family formally, and I will do my very best to make everyone proud and to continue to make sure that Syosset is a shining example of amazing schools. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. That was excellent. Dr. Rogers, do you want to give your superintendent's report, please?
Yes, so one of the things that the board has been talking about quite a bit has been the growth in enrollment that we've experienced and the pressure that's put on our facilities and the ongoing need to keep our facilities in good shape. So we're going to kind of catch up a little bit on that work that we've been engaged in as the board realizes and the community will know. The school districts in New York State are required to do what's called a building condition survey every 5 years. When I first arrived in Syosset, this was a new mandate, and we weren't required to do it for at least a year, but knowing that this was a new organization for me and wanting to make sure that there weren't any surprises, we started the work a year ahead of schedule so that we could start to build a plan. One of the things I observed about Syosset was, on the one hand, the buildings had gotten a lot of attention from the maintenance staff, but the district's infrastructure was mostly built in the 50s and was old, and Syosset had not done a lot of capital work, bonded capital work, on maintaining its facilities. It was a little behind the pace of what you would expect from comparable school districts with ages of facilities that were similar to ours. So we broke the work into phase 1 and phase 2, knowing that we weren't going to get to everything, but wanting to take as good a chunk of the work as we possibly could. So we did a lot of work preparing for the board at that time, the building condition survey. That survey essentially turned into a roadmap for the work that needed to be done on the buildings. And then with the public's approval, we got to work on that. And the work on that from phase 1 and phase 2 is almost at a close at this point. And the time has come, a new 5-year requirement from the state has occurred. Our architecture firm of H2M has done the work of the annual visual inspection, the building condition survey, and we're going to together present these results to the board. I'm not sure who's advancing the slides, but if someone could, I guess I'm advancing the slide.
We could also do it from here.
I wasn't sure because it was me. As we've said, we end up having these visual inspections that are done by professionals. We end up working on those recommendations to try and refine them, and then ultimately we have public input both at public board meetings and at focus group meetings, and we get to a place where we have a plan that is ultimately presented to the public for approval. Okay.
I think that turns on the light.
So as I mentioned, the facilities are kind of old. I tried to come up with a visual way of representing this. And so the length of the bar, the height of the bar, is the amount of square footage. And each cluster of bars is a decade. So the cluster at the left, where all the bars exist, are the 1950s. And you can see that since the 1950s, there has been a little bit of work done in the 90s and the early 2000s, but most of the square footage in the district was built in the 1950s, and that means all of the buildings are essentially turning 70 together. And as with any facility of this age, 70 years is a long time for a facility to go, especially when a lot of the building systems are original. Things like electrical systems, plumbing systems, heating and ventilation systems are original. They're very old, they're hard to source parts for, they're inefficient, and some of them are definitely struggling. We did a lot of work over the course of the past 3 years as a result of COVID to work on our ventilation, and that also necessitated a lot of electrical work, but there's still plenty more work to be done. The other piece that's context for where we are right now is that we're experiencing enrollment growth, and I won't belabor this because we've talked about it at 2 previous board meetings, but we're seeing an enrollment bubble that is going to work its way through the district. That bubble is at the elementary level right now. We have a couple of buildings that are particularly tight. That as those students age out of the elementary schools, that we will experience a bubble at the middle schools, and then as they age into the high school, we'll experience a bubble at the high school. All of our facilities are close to capacity, so there isn't a lot of excess room to accommodate all of that anticipated growth. So this is not only our opportunity to fix our aging facilities, but to really think strategically about where we'll put the students that we know are going to be in our secondary schools in the future. So if Board of Education, you'll think about this presentation as really kind of a 2-part presentation. So the part tonight will be talking about the building repairs and systems and space to accommodate immediate enrollment needs. And then part 2, at a future board meeting, we'll talk about the future program and enrollment growth that we're anticipating and other things that have come up as discussion items. So I'm not saying that we're committed to recommending any of these things, but I want to acknowledge that a lot of these have been suggestions that have come forward from the community or from the PTA or from the building leadership, and they're discussion items that I know the board wants to turn over and get some feedback on. So for the first part of this presentation, I'm going to turn this over now to Dr. Rufo and Mr. Kevin Medler from H2M, an architecture and engineering firm that we use. And I think I should probably give the clicker to someone else. You have it there? Okay, great.
This button. This one, that one? This button. Oh, and who's that? That's what I've been doing. I've been doing it, so.
You have, okay, excellent. Good evening. We have Kevin Medler here from H2M, our firm, our architectural firm. We have Megan Bellato, and then we have Joe Matola also from H2M. And so the first thing that we're going to ask Kevin to walk us through is the visual inspection. And I'd like, Kevin will first talk a little bit about the process and then broadly, in summary form, overall what was found in the schools. So you want to take it away? I'll leave that.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board and community. So, as stated, I am Kevin Medler. I'm an architect, also a New York State code enforcement official. In what is mandated by the state is to do a visual inspection based on the schedule that the state requires, or SED requires. There's a schedule set forth for visual inspections for every school district, as well as building condition surveys. The visual inspections are based upon safety and the health of the students in the community. With the slide that you see in front of you was compiled based on what we would call a hybrid of that visual inspection and building condition survey. So the building conditions is a bit more in-depth than the visual inspection, knowing that to help the board prepare moving forward, we did that hybrid where as we did our visual inspections, which was, again, focused on safety and health, we also focused on the building conditions to help budget some of these items that will be required that have been identified.
So before we go on, I just want to point out that clearly there's work to be done in all of the schools, as you can see across all schools and many of the major building systems. And going back to our approach when we did our phase 1 and phase 2 work, and we had the BCS and had a fairly large bottom line number, you start to think, well, how can we phase that work? How can we chunk that work out? And how can we accomplish it over time? And what are the resources that we're going to look to do that? So just based on the information that was presented in the visual inspection, Mr. Hamilton and the architects worked together to see if we broke it out into work that we could do in-house as part of our annual budget in terms of doing a transfer to capital or a line item in one of Greg's budget codes. Those are what are presented up above. And then below is that work that would require outside contractor, larger in scope, that could go perhaps into a bond or being done some other way. So that was our first attempt to sort of what we call break out, chunk out the work. So I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin to go through some of the high-level projects.
So some of the items which are larger items to deal with, we wanted to show and visually show to the board and the community of how we came about. So the slides that you see before you are some of the roof areas of the schools. With that, you'll see a legend up there. In red, you'll see areas that are currently scheduled to be completed, which already have approved funding in place. You have some of the roofs in green, those have been completed previously, and some of the roofs in blue, which are to be completed within the next five years or have been identified to be completed over the next 5 years. The roofs that are not identified, they are roofs that have been previously completed and do have a warranty still in place. One of the other items that are identified, or should I say major areas that are identified, is masonry and parking/site improvements. So during our visual inspection, it's not only interior, and we look at the infrastructure and all the items of a building, but we also look at the envelope. So we look at the exterior, the roofs, the site, and what we note are areas of whether they're concerns now or shortly we feel, such as masonry pointing. You'll see in the image up there, which is obviously just one small example, are cracks in the masonry, which obviously cause, through the aging of the buildings, it has to be maintained. These buildings are roughly 70 years old. Masonry usually starts showing its age around 40, 50 years. So it's an ongoing maintenance issue. With that, we've identified a significant amount of masonry repointing repair that will be required at a majority of the schools. Also, site improvements. The things that we focus on with the site, and again, if you refer to the image, is anywhere that there's maintenance to be done, we consider it, whether it's a safety issue or accessibility issue, so we do note those. So those are line items that we do have in that report. And any structural issues, if you refer to the other canopies, they are showing their age, so those are items that we've also identified within that scope. On the next slide, you'll see photos of the science labs. We have done projects previously updating some of the science labs. We've identified 10 that need to be renovated over in the future. One being that with the way the curriculums are going with the science programs, that flexibility is important because it allows the district to use classrooms in multiple ways, so it allows the flexibility to change that program when needed. And as Dr. Rogers also noted before, the infrastructure. So again, when we review these buildings, the infrastructure is very important. These buildings are, again, 7 years old. You'll keep hearing that as a running theme, where the infrastructure, for the most part, is original. That being said, it does have to be looked at. With previous projects that we've done, there have been requirements for us to upgrade some of the infrastructure for the electrical services, but there are still electrical infrastructure that does have to be maintained, and which include infrastructure upgrades and also panel upgrades. Also, plumbing. We've reviewed plumbing, and not just the infrastructure of the plumbing, but also the bathrooms in general. We have done some projects where we've updated the bathrooms, but there are still a decent amount of bathrooms that still need to be upgraded, not only, again, for the infrastructure, but also for accessibility requirements.
Okay, so Kevin went through some of the major building systems and areas that were included as part of the visual inspection. So in addition to that, we have what Dr. Rogers had described as Bucket 2, and those are projects that potentially could address some of our space issues and can accommodate enrollment growth. And those include portable replacements at the elementary schools, replacements of those portables, additional classrooms at Southwoods, and potentially rehabilitating the Woodbury School, which has been brought up over time. So the portable replacement, and I'll let Kevin talk about the different approaches to portable replacements, both using pre-engineered or what we call brick and mortar. So do you want to address those things?
So in review of the portables, they are typically last 10 to 15 years. The portables that are currently in place, some are 40 plus years old. With that, the intent is to replace those portables, again, for longevity, but we are reviewing different types of construction for not only cost, but also schedule. Some of these sites are very tight where these portables are, so we know that it's tight not only for enrollment, but also the schedule, and the intent is to try to keep it during the summer schedule. With that, that would mean we have to include demolition as well as construction. So pre-engineered units is a likely option, or the brick and mortar. The masonry, which would be masonry block with masonry veneer, which is your typical school construction, Yes, there's a cost with that. There's longevity to it, but there's also a schedule factor in that. The other item that we have to really look at is the limited downtime. So with pre-engineered structures, we can get that quicker. There is a cost associated with that as well, but there's also a longevity issue. So those are items that we're looking at and analyzing to make sure that it's the right construction and the right project with the schedule well thought out. And with the enrollment that Dr. Rogers just went through, we know that we can't take some of these schools or spaces out of the mix. So we need to make sure that it's up and running as long as possible.
Okay, so potential costs. We mentioned the first bucket is the building repairs and systems, and that is first go through is $88 million, and broken up into the two segments of doing work in-house for about $23 million, leaves the remaining $65 million for the larger projects. When we look at potential costs for space to accommodate the growth, Kevin went through the different approaches to the portables. In the $14 million range is the pre-engineered versus the $21 million for the bricks and mortar for those spaces. They've done some preliminary cost for adding space at Southwoods and additional classrooms in the range of $1 million. The $6 million number for the Woodbury School renovation, the Woodbury School, renovating the Woodbury School not only addresses some potentially space concerns at Southwoods. Back when we were doing the security analysis, that came up as an option. Just given some of the administrative departments in the building that have frequent visitors. We do our bid openings here, we have our registration here, so there's visitors that come to Southwoods for those functions, so it kind of served a dual purpose of freeing up space at Southwoods and then funneling some of those visitors to a location that doesn't have students. But again, that's in the $6 million range. As we look at developing potential costs, there are considerations on the certainly putting upwards pressure on cost is the rise in interest rates, primarily due to inflation. And while we see that maybe that's slowing down in the short term and leveling off, that's good news, but it certainly is not where it was several years ago. We know that construction costs have, in some cases, have been escalating over the last couple of years. They're seeing some plateauing, although very specific areas that are still increasing. So some plateauing, but no expectation that those costs are going to decrease right now. They are still experiencing some supply chain issues for certain products. So those are putting upwards pressures on cost. One of the things working in our favor is that our state aid reimbursement on projects is up to about 42% of the costs. So that will help us manage this. If there are debt service payments, and then as we know that building aid that we get offsets some of those debt service payments. And so for us, that's in the 42% range. So that brings us to our next steps in the process.
So obviously we have to have the conversation tonight, and this is really our chance to pick the architect's brains about the visual inspection, the building condition work that they've done. Then the board, I know, is going to be touring the facilities as you did last summer. You'll do again this July, and you'll get a chance to see a lot of the visual inspection work up close. And as we start to work on the project list that we want to tackle next, we'll start doing more public engagement and getting public feedback. And at some point, you, the board, will settle on a final list of projects that you want to put out for public approval. And then we'll go through the process of seeking public approval, which will involve lots of public meetings and forums and opportunities for feedback. And then assuming that the public approves the project, we don't get to put the shovel in the ground right away. We have to go through a long procurement process where we have to bid the work, we have to design the work. That will take a lot of time. The work is estimated now. The next step is once it's approved, the effort goes into the actual creation of architectural drawings. Once the architectural drawings are completed, we put them out to bid. We review the bidders, and then we go through the contracting process with the bidders. The bidders have to agree to the terms in our contract. Sometimes that doesn't always work. And then ultimately, once we've awarded the bid, then we can start working on a construction schedule to get the work started. The other thing that will be in the way is every project that the school does has to first get a building permit. But we don't get building permits from the local housing department. We get building permits from the state education department in Albany. And right now, unfortunately, it takes about 40 weeks for engineering projects to get approved from the state ed department. So there's a lot of lead time in anything that we do. So, I just want to keep our expectations realistic for how fast we can move once we've made some decisions. But for now, we're in the decision, we're still in the exploration phase, not necessarily in the decision-making phase, but we'll move from exploration to decision-making next. So, Mr. Rotolo, at this time, if board members have questions for myself, obviously, or for our facilities team, we'd be happy to answer them. Okay, thank you for that. Mistaken date on the chart. Our mistake. Thank you.
Lynn?
I have a couple of questions. The first is you listed the process just now about getting approval with architectural drawings, et cetera, but is that for fixing things like repointing the brick and things like that, or is that just building new projects like fixing the we can't talk anymore, but you know what I mean.
I understand the question. So all work that gets done in a school district gets approved in one way or another. There's just several different mechanisms for doing the approval. So work can be approved as part of the approval of the school district budget. So that would be the mechanism. And for a lot of more routine maintenance or smaller capital projects, that's typically the mechanism that we use. Sometimes we will do what's called a transfer to capital, where we take money from the capital fund and transfer it into the budget in order to do, if the first thing I was talking about were smaller projects, then transfer to capital would be more medium-sized projects. But anything that is a significant project would require public approval. And anything that is capital construction would require a building permit and need to go through the state. So even if it's discovered as a result of the need to fix a building system, a repair to an air conditioning system or something like that, even if the visual inspection is the mechanism by which it was discovered, the approval process is the same. So whether we were building buildings to replace the portables, the existing portables, or whether we're doing a capital project to improve a ventilation system, they both have to have some approval over the funding source, because that's ultimately what's being approved is the funding source, and then approval over the design, which is what the state ed department does.
Sorry, there's more. Two questions, I guess, for maybe, I'm not sure who. But the jobs are in two buckets, and the bucket one was based on health and necessity. Within bucket one, is there a 2-year, a 3-year, a 4-year, an immediate broken out so that we understand that? And financially, when you're doing work to buildings, is it more financially responsible or to do all the floors for all the buildings, all the roofs for all the buildings, or is it by building that it makes more economic sense?
So I'll let Mr. Medler talk a little bit about how they would evaluate getting the right balance between how much work to do and putting in money now versus putting in more money later, those kinds of considerations, because they will advise us on that. And then in terms of your first question, I think really what you're asking for is a triaging of the things that are identified. Some are more significant, obviously, than others. And again, the triaging is something that H2M would work on. But Kevin, if you could give us a little more detail.
So the way when you look at that chart, what we do is we have a 5-year plan. The state requires that each school district have a 5-year plan moving forward for their budgets. We prioritize what we feel what's required in year 1, 2, 3, 4, understanding that we can't do all the work in year 1, understanding we can't do all the work in year 2. We prioritize and spread it out where we feel that it best suits the needs that are identified. The highest priority we're getting done in year 1. Highest second would be year 2, all the way out to year 5. There are other things that get identified outside of the 5 years, but that's discussed with the district in order to just keep an eye on it at that point. But the highest priorities are set.
Brian?
In the bucket 1, I guess that's building repairs, right? So bucket 2 is more about the additional space. Bucket 1, somewhere around $88 million. Is any of that, right? Like when you look through the materials, you see that there's some of the details regarding walls and windows. Will any of bucket 1 add any space at all to the existing buildings?
No, none of the visual inspection work, that's just existing square footage. And I should say parenthetically, we have a little over 1 million square feet of building under management. So the visual inspection is just for the space that we currently have. And then it's the second column where with the numbers that are on there for the portable replacement, I keep trying to go backwards with the slides, but this really isn't functional. So more backwards is better. All the way to the buckets slide. Back one more. 2 more. That one. The second column there, space to accommodate enrollment. So with the replacement of the portables, the numbers there for the estimate, anywhere between 14 and 21 million, that would presume replacing the existing portables in kind and adding 1 more classroom everywhere there is a portable. So it would be, if there's 3 now, it would go to 4.
But that's all in bucket 2. I'm wondering if there's anything in bucket 1, right? You take an existing classroom and what we'll call finish it. Could it expand the size of any of the classrooms? In other words, is any of the 88 million going to give us room for another 50, 100 children in any of the schools?
So there's nothing in the visual inspection work that would do that. We have one project that is up at the State Ed Department right now awaiting approval that would take a large storage room at the high school that is a corner room. And I say storage room and your mind goes to closet, but it's actually a very large space. It's adequate for a classroom. But because it doesn't have windows, it would not meet code for a classroom. So we've designed a window project that would make that into a classroom. So once we get approval from the State Ed Department, that would add 1 classroom at the high school. There is also space at the high school that is being purposed right now as like a broadcast recording studio. And if the space is not handsome, but I think if we rehabilitated that space, we could program it with more time during the day, and that would accommodate a little bit of growth at the high school. But Kevin, check me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe anything about the visual inspections increases square footage or makes an unusable classroom suddenly usable.
No, it's more for just maintenance. And just to follow up on the other question regarding economy of scale, that is factored in to these projects. So obviously, if we do one classroom and we're redoing the floors, we'll see what we can get as much as we can. But obviously, there's a budget involved that we have to adhere to.
I have two questions. You gave us a chart. So when I'm looking at the first one, AVI work as transfer to capital budget plan, there is a list of roofing, the cost that's listed. And then on the second chart, that is for the AVI work of potential bond, there is another list of roofing that's there. What are the difference? Why aren't they combined in one section? For example, Syosset High School in the future bond work, there's a 2.25 million, and then in the transfer to capital, there is 1.5 million roofing work that need to be done. So there's like altogether that's about 3.75 million work, and it repeats on Southwoods and other schools too. That's first question. Second question is I understand the benefits of having portable. What would be the downside of having portable? And we get 42%, right, from the state aid. Will we get less if we get portable versus getting a regular construction?
I'm Megan Bellato. I work at H2M. Just to answer your first question, so there's a tremendous amount of roof work that needs to be done, and understanding that all of it can come from a bond and some of it needs to come to the capital reserve or transfer to capital. So understanding that some is in bond work and some is in transfer to capital, identifying that having the opportunity to do it in two different areas. So that amount of work needs to be done, but knowing it can't all be done within the bond. They're different, yes, different square footages based on those plans that were in there, identifying the areas of work.
And about the portable?
Do you want to answer that question, or do you want me to? So for portables, you do not get aid on portables. If you do built construction, you do get aid.
And on the prefabricated construction?
You would get aid on that.
Right. So we're not recommending replacing portables with portables. We're recommending two different types of construction. One would be CMU, concrete masonry unit.
Correct.
The other would be prefabricated buildings, but they're both construction. So the $14 million number would be if all of it was built as prefabricated construction, and the $21 million number would be as if all of it was built as concrete masonry units. So cinder block, in other words. So what Kevin and Megan were saying earlier is some of the sites are so tight that it would not be possible to build CMU because there's no place to put it. In other words, we can't afford to close any classrooms, so we can't knock down the portables while we take 2 years to construct a CMU building. So it simply won't be possible to do that at some places. There are other places that, Bayless has a large campus. It would be possible to build 3 new classrooms somewhere, and then at the end of that project, demolish the portables. But Berry Hill is much too tight to do that with. So we'll may have a combination of the two approaches to replacing the existing portables with new construction. And I would just say on the roofing and why things are broken up between doing it as transfer to capital or putting in bond, Dr. Rufo's strategy is to try and avoid interest cost wherever possible. So the more work we can do without borrowing, the less we pay in interest costs. So if there are smaller roofing projects that we might be able to address through the district budget and transfer to capital, we would do them as a one-time cost and not incur any borrowing expense. But the larger projects are just too large to do that way, and so we would have to borrow for those. And again, we're trying to shave everywhere we possibly can, so even interest costs are something we're trying to avoid.
Okay, two questions. Well, thank you, Dr. Rufo, and also H2M for the presentation. It's definitely very thorough, and also looking at the dollar amount, and I can see that we are very sensitive to taxpayers' money. So every dollar is spent, where it's needed. So the first question is that, so looking at just the bucket one, the $88 million, I assume it takes into consideration of the interest rates, inflation, and all the different construction costs and supply chains, because we're not getting that done for at least 2 years, 40 weeks, and then plus the 1 year until next May for the voters' approval. So that's number one. And number two, it's about the pre-engineered buildings. Dr. Rogers, is that still subject to the 40 weeks approval from the state ed, even though it's not being constructed on site? If it's sooner than that, it's going to help with the alleviating the space issues we have, and also when it comes to the cost, it's going to save on the cost as well.
So I'll let H2M defend their estimates, because the estimates are theirs, and you'll have a better sense of whether there's a different amount of SED lead time on pre-engineered buildings versus CMU buildings.
Escalation is taken into consideration when doing the estimate, so we were sensitive to what year that we predicted the work to be done based on the 5-year plan, so that is incorporated, and the cost of construction increases. And then for the SED submission, it's the same lead time for a pre-manufactured building as it would be for traditional construction, so that doesn't change.
So in your estimates too, I know that our matching aid used to be maybe like 19% that we would get. Or, right? What was it before? 21% or 19%?
It was actually 16% when I got here, 9 years ago.
So is your estimate taking into account that now it's 42%?
We don't take that into account, no.
Okay. So then maybe this is a Dr. Rufo question or Dr. Rogers question. So that's the 88,000 or whatever it is. So then this, based on education space, I understand all that. Then we would get a reimbursement of that 42%. Tell me how that works.
Yes. So in the aid, the way the aid is calculated, the projects go up to the state, and they will give you an estimate of your state aid for a project based on your aid ratio and other factors. And we would work with the architects, because not every piece of the project is aidable, and we work with the architects and SED to try to maximize our aid. Site work is something that is not always on itself aidable, but we would try to couple it with projects that are building based so that we could maximize our aid.
Right. So a lot of our educational space that meets the.
Absolutely, yes.
That meets
yes.
The future space, and then you guys have heard me say this before, which was that obviously we're not a construction company. Our goal is child safety and building for the future versus repairing. We want to plan for the next 70 years, not the past 70 years. And again, everything we're doing is how is this going to improve our education? We're doing construction is the new classroom of the future, which we've had in the past. How is that going to increase proficiency, do better in math? At the end of the day, it's not just doing the construction, it's how is that going to make us a better district, and how the kids going to learn better than just the industrial model that's from the 1900s. So just want to throw that out there.
If I may, If I may, Mr. Rotolo, one of the things with the science rooms and the reason why they're on the list is because a lot of the rooms are turning into single-purpose rooms. So if the room doesn't have adequate sinks for all the students to use, you really can't use it for biology. If the room doesn't have hoods, you can't use it for chemistry. And then as a science room, it becomes very limited in what you can use it for. So part of the reason for wanting to rehabilitate the room, not only is the casework in poor shape, but it also creates, it makes the rooms more flexible in that you can perform different kinds of instruction in the room, and the more authentic science students are doing, obviously the better they're going to understand the material. So yeah, we're certainly trying to shoot past where we are right now in terms of some of that space to where and how we think it will be used next 5 years, next 10 years.
And I know that we had went on some tours and utilizing their current space for multiple uses, not just for one thing, was actually a big cost savings with dividers. And so that was using the same space and getting more utility out of it than in the past. I think you were talking about with that space we saw at the high school, which was pretty big space that could turn into classroom space. Okay. Questions? Okay, Lisa.
Thank you. I have two questions. One question is, when the electrical updates were done as far as AC units, because I know we did a lot of AC, HVAC work within the district, during the last few years when those projects were on, did we do any electrical panel upgrades? Was it a necessity to upgrade any of the panels at that point in time? Because I noticed that was one of the points you had made during your presentation.
There were a significant amount of panels upgraded, but still there's a significant amount to be done, along with some main infrastructure upgrades at the two middle schools and Walt Whitman.
Just jotting down what you're saying. And also, I have a question for you on the prefab. Mr. Medler had mentioned about, you said about prefab buildings, that there was a difference, or maybe I misunderstood you, so I just want to ask you about it. The difference in the longevity between prefab and brick and mortar might be different. Do you see that the prefabs will not, are you saying the prefabs wouldn't last as long as a regular brick and mortar, or what is your opinion on the difference between the two types of builds?
So when you talk about the prefabricated, it does have a longevity, but nothing will beat CMU with the masonry. It's just more durable and takes a lot more abuse. So although there is still a longevity with the prefabricated, it's just masonry is the longest the longest life of a building.
And for the prefab buildings, what would you say the lead time is? If we were to order those buildings, how long would it take for those to be constructed, do you think, roughly?
So when you do a prefabricated, it's constructed off-site. So the intent is to demolish, get everything cleared, put your foundations in, and then bring that structure in. So it all gets planned out prior to that happening. This way, once it's demolished, foundation goes in, and then that building is set, and within a short period of time, it gets up and running for all intents and purposes. So it's more of just the off-site. There's a lot of planning to it and a lot of coordination with it. So that time frame could still be similar to a regular constructed project, but that's off-site, and that's the benefit of that, is to get those in very quickly.
So with regard to the bubble moving through, Dr. Rogers, that's probably for you. Considering how long everything takes even to get started, are we going to be chasing this bubble, or are we actually looking at a possibility of completing and creating more space in time, if not for the elementary and elementary level, perhaps at Southwoods? And also the second question would be the timeline on the remediation of the Woodbury School. And would that be possible to be completed in time? And would Woodbury School accommodate all of the central office? And if so, would that be an immediate relief space-wise at Southwoods when that happens? I guess that's 3 questions, 2.5. Sorry.
All great questions. So I do think that we have enough time to plan for and prepare for the bubble. There's still some elasticity in the building here, and that gives us a little bit of time to work with. I'll let H2M talk about what they see as the timeline on rehabilitation of the Woodbury School. That's a project that's not for the faint of heart. And then if we were to relocate, I'm imagining we would, what we talked about when, I guess it was 2018, we were discussing using the Woodbury School to relocate some of the functions from here. We were talking about relocating the business wing, and that would free up significant amount of space in this building, certainly I think adequate for the anticipated enrollment growth here at Southwoods. And at the high school, we have even more lead time because the bubble will need to finish moving through the middle schools first. The projections for elementary were that we were at our plateau, and so far, even as of this morning, I always check enrollment before the board meetings, we're still at that plateau. We haven't split any more sections at elementary school, but we'll continue to watch that obviously very closely.
Sorry.
The timeline on the Woodbury renovation, please.
So if, I'll use best case scenario, that if it was approved today, just to give you some of the items, I wouldn't give you necessarily a time frame in the sense of there's a lot to it. So being in the condition that it's in, there's a lot of issues that have to be reviewed. So not only existing conditions that are there, all the evaluation of the structure, environmental remediation. At that time, then design would happen, permitting would happen, and then obviously construction. So there's a lot of process that goes in between, but obviously we would do the best we could to expedite it because we know that if the administration's going in there, it's important to get that up and running to get the other projects moving forward as well.
And so one of the things we've talked about is if we did decide to move forward with this plan, it may be necessary to have a year of rented space somewhere for the business wing. Be unfortunate to have to move twice, but maybe you'd rent some office space for a little while as swing space while you're waiting for the Woodbury School renovation to be finalized and then move into a permanent home.
Sorry, just quick. And there's a freed space at Southwoods here. Would that be classroom space, straightforward classroom space, or something else? And what would be the functionality of the space?
We haven't gone that deep into design on what the space would be. At this point, it's if we have the appetite for creating more square footage here, certainly we're going to need more classroom space. But I think there would probably be some programmatic decisions that the building would want to make about moving some things around from their current homes in the building and finding more efficiencies, locating classrooms with similar content areas near one another, that sort of thing. So that space is in a hallway that is currently used for world languages and earth science. So that may be. We would have to think about whether we would want to add what kinds of classrooms would make the most sense in there given what's already in the hallway, or whether some of that needed to be relocated.
Since we're talking about the Woodbury School, I'll ask those questions first that I had. On the space to accommodate growth, you have $1 million in Southwoods additional classrooms. Is that in connection with renovating the Woodbury School? So is it $6 million for the Woodbury School and then $1 million to reconfigure everything here?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so was that that $7 million to do that was the cheapest, or like made the most sense, as opposed to either adding a second, adding going up or going out here? That was made the most sense. Is that?
I would say that made the most sense based on the existing condition of the building and the available space.
Can you add, just out of curiosity, a prefab classrooms on top of a structure that already exists? Can you, to add like a second level? Or is that not possible?
It is, but there's a lot of evaluation into that because you're adding a whole nother level of structure on top of an existing structure that's not meant to take that new structure.
So it doesn't
a
make
lot of
sense.
times it's a lot of modification, not only to the steel, masonry walls, foundation, so there's a lot of work that has to be done in that existing structure that you're putting the new one on top of.
Okay. Okay, and then I just, on the subject of the prefabs, so when for time-wise, it would be possible to do the complete demolition and install all the prefab building in the summer timeframe? That would be enough time?
The intent is to schedule it where we can, it's tight, but we do the best we can to try to stick to that schedule. Most contractors that work on school projects understand that that's the time frame to get things done.
Okay.
So, again, the intent is to get everything as much as we can off-site.
Right.
To just come right on site, install it, and it's ready to go.
Right. I just didn't know the time-wise, if it was possible to do all the demolition, build the foundation, and install the prefab in the summer, so I just wanted to clarify. And then the other thing is, at least I asked about the longevity, which was one of my questions, but what is do you know what the difference in the longevity is? You know, the brick and mortar typically lasts however many years, and then the prefabs are good for, you know.
It's all generally how you maintain the buildings, and again, the masonry is a lot more durable. So as you can see, most of these buildings are 7 years old, and with maintenance, they last a long time. I would say there's probably more maintenance for the prefabricated or pre-engineered, depending on the system that's used. But there is still longevity to it. So it's not that it's in 20 years it'll be, out the door. It's still longevity. It's still a 40-year-ish building that it's going to hold up.
So in 40 years, what happens to the prefabricated structures?
It all depends on the maintenance. That's.
Is it like that you'd have to tear it down and rebuild it, or?
It depends on the maintenance. I would imagine it's probably no, but this, again, we want to keep these buildings around as long as possible. As, it's discussed. Once it's built, nobody wants to think about it for another 70 years, other than some routine maintenance.
Right. Are there any other drawbacks to the prefabricated, aside from the longevity?
No. Durability is the biggest thing, but again, it's maintenance. The pro, I'll say, for the prefabricated is all the work that can be done off-site to be brought on.
Of
so
course.
its schedule is the pro for that.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, so thank you. I have a couple of sort of process questions I want to try and understand. So it seems like you've combined an annual visual inspection and a building condition survey in the review that we're seeing in front of us. So the last time I read the building condition survey a number of years ago, it breaks out, I think, where conditions in the buildings are satisfactory, unsatisfactory, need to be repaired within a short time frame, a long time frame. How would you contrast the analysis that you've done? How would I break apart things that you've done in the annual visual inspection or the building condition survey, and does that even matter in terms of the consideration?
So the visual inspection is based upon safety, so making sure that egress windows are clear, the signs on them, that fire doors closed, that there's, it's your typical operation to make sure that there's a safety factor within the school. The building conditions is more about the bones of the building and the infrastructure. So it's to make sure that the building itself is in good condition. So that's why when we say hybrid, we have to walk every building when we do our visual inspection. We walk every classroom, walk every corridor, and make sure that everything, the safety components are in place. So while we do that, it makes sense to take notes of some of the infrastructure that we see, some of the components that we see, which again, knowing that it's an ongoing maintenance issue, the intent was to help set up those budgets over the next 5 years. So there is a difference between the visual inspection and the building condition survey.
And so all of the information and the sort of the budgetary estimates are based on the combination of those two things over the next 5-year period, which is normally the building condition survey sort of projection.
Correct.
Are there things that are not listed here where we expect over the next 3 to 5 year period that those items are going to potentially fail, like boilers or security alarms or fire, anything like that? Are there other things that aren't shown here as part of that building condition survey that you're concluding?
We do the best we can to analyze any of those items that we notice, and there are items that we do note, but we feel that there is still time outside of the 5 years. So anything within that 5 years we felt needs to be reviewed, looked at, maintained in the next 5 years. So do we note other items? Yes. If we don't feel that within that 5 years, that's another list that we have that discussion, just so we know we have to keep an eye on.
And is the visual inspection and the building condition survey, are there draft reports that we can review other than the budgetary estimates so that we can read about sort of the summary of the findings that have to go to the state before it gets sent there?
We do provide to the district, and I would imagine that it's a ongoing process, so we understand, so everybody understands what we've identified, and it's a discussion. So that always is an ongoing process when we do our inspections.
And then just one last thing. If I think back to the last building condition survey, I can't remember, or I don't know if I ever saw, if there was a cost estimate that came with the conclusion of that last building condition survey, and I'm just trying to understand how to compare that to the 80, and essentially what this reflects, the most recent building condition survey, the $88 million. If I think back to the last one completed in 2016, do we have an idea of what that building condition survey estimated refurb would have been?
I'm going to do this off the top of my head, and hopefully Dr. Rufo has a better memory than I do, but I'm going to say it was like 67 million or something in that range. Dr. Rufo, does that sound familiar? Okay. So from 2015, off the top of my head, I think it was about 67 million. And as Dr. Rufo has kind of started to do with this list of projects, obviously these are large numbers, and so the first cut is, what do we think we can add to the maintenance plan that the district is doing, or things that we know would be typical for what we do as transfer to capital work. Maybe we can carve 23 million of that out of the project. And this is what we did the last time around. We identified lots and lots of roof work that had to be done through the district budget. Ultimately, we had some money in a capital reserve that we were able to apply the last time around to a lot of the costs, and then about $20 million, I think, was there. And then we had the advantage of having a bond roll-off. So at the time, I used the analogy of it's like having your one child graduate from college and having the second one become a freshman. So it's still one tuition payment, it's just for a different kid. So it's like one mortgage goes away, but you start a second mortgage to take its place. But from a how many tuitions am I paying perspective, it's still just one tuition. So we had that circumstance before. We are going to have a smaller bond roll-off next year, not nearly of the magnitude that we had with the 2015 BCS, that will sort of blunt the amount of impact that it would have to repay the debt. And then the other, as Mr. Rotolo pointed out earlier, the other advantage we have now is that our building aid reimbursement from the state is much higher than it was 5-6 years ago when we did the first BCS. So that's an advantage, but unfortunately kind of mitigated a little bit by higher interest rates right now and the surge in construction costs that we saw during COVID. So, lots of moving parts, but I do remember the face value number from 2015 as being in like the 67 range, 70 range.
So, and just so you know too, and so obviously 2015, 2017, when we were doing work before with the air conditioning and the filtration system, we started rejecting a lot of the bids. This is going back a couple of years, because we were astounded, and H2M was saying, hey, we put these out to bid. A year or two later, these things were up 150%. That's why we kept rejecting them. But the district did a good job. Mr. Hamilton did a good job of kind of retrofitting some of the stuff, having some of the stuff done in-house to kind of mitigate that. But the fact that building aid is a big deal for us, because going from 16% to 41% reimbursement on educational spaces is tremendous. Obviously, taking into account inflation, construction costs going up, the lead time with getting this done, availability of contractors, there's a lot of factors that play into this. But you could ask another question. I just wanted to, they've done a good job of working through a lot of these things, which were not easy.
Sorry, just to conclude the point that I was working up to, and I'm thinking about as I'm reviewing this, right? A little bit of the estimates are sort of confusing needs with sources and uses, right? I think sources and uses comes after the identification of needs. And the reason why I was trying to get to an understanding of what's on the building condition survey versus the visual inspection, the thing that I don't clearly understand in a way that's separated is the stuff that needs to be done for safety first, not coupled with things that seem to be potentially wish projects, which may not be directly related to safety. For example, science labs or pools or things like that are shown in the $88 million, which is part of the building condition survey visual inspection. What would be more helpful for me is if, instead of tranching sources and uses and time frame, is if we took the projects and sorted them by highest need for safety and things that we need to address first, and then wish lists second, and then future growth third, et cetera. So another way we're going to be having these conversations for a really long period of time, so there's going to be a lot of different ways to sort of break it up, but that would help me sort of visualize the efforts over time.
And I'll say that this is similar to the question that Lynn was asking, Ms. Aronson was asking earlier, which is, can we triage the work that's in here? So what H2M does, because this is the BCS process by law, is they organize things into year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. So I think when we look at $14 million worth of bathroom and plumbing work, obviously there's these bathrooms have been in existence for 70 years, so they'll certainly continue for another year. It's really a question of we don't want them to continue like this forever because they're in tough shape. So how much do you want to take on at any given point? So health and safety first, of course, but then of these other things that are not imminent threats to health and safety, but are nevertheless things that the district has to address, how much of that do you want to tackle? And we were talking before the meeting, and my question to H2M, which I think I was asking, anticipating where you might go with this conversation as a board, was, are some bathrooms worse than others? If we were to say to you, can you identify the worst group? If we did the worst group before, what's the next worst group that needs to be addressed? And they said that they could do that sort of work for the board if you wanted it.
Dr. Ruffo, this may be for you, and it may be an impossible question, and I apologize for that. We talked before, so if we look at just bucket 1, the 88 million, is there a way to sort of ballpark what is aidable within that 88 million, or is it close to 2%? Is it close to 98%?
No, not really, not at this time. I would really be, sometimes we do an estimate, we say 85% or 90%, but I just don't feel comfortable doing that at this point.
Dr. Rogers, could we sort of, if we're going to tranche this or whatever the next steps may be, right? Could we sort of include that in the formula?
I have a question about the prefab building again. So what is the history of the prefab building? Has it been around enough for us to actually have some sort of actual example of prefab school buildings that lasted 40 years? Has it been time tested?
We do have buildings that have been completed. Whether they've been there for 40 years, I don't have the answer to that, but they are constructed on a somewhat regular basis. So it is a proven method of construction.
How long has it been around?
I don't know the answer to that, but it's definitely a construction that's been around for a while.
Like 10 years, 20 years?
Longer than that.
Longer?
But again, I don't have a specific answer for you. I can look into that a little bit more, see if I can get you a bit more information.
Right, because the difference will be only $7 million between prefab and something that could last 70 years, just like these buildings that's been lasting for 70 years, although it needs maintenance.
Again, it's the schedule and the constraints, the site constraints that we have. That's the reason why it's being looked at. So that's something that has to be a consideration. So that'll be a further discussion if we're moving forward in that route. That would have to be looked at.
Thank you so much, both of you. We really appreciate it. And Dr. Rufo and Mr. Hamilton.
So I'll just conclude the superintendent's report. At the last board meeting, the board took action on the mascot in response to the state's new regulation. We've been working on a plan for how we'll solicit community input on the choice of a new mascot. I think some of the questions in my mind are, how to make sure that we get adequate community participation. So we know that there will be student athletes who are anxious to move to a new mascot, and we'll also have members of the community that want to make sure that there's plenty of opportunity for public input and feedback. We know we certainly want to hear from our community. We certainly want to hear from our students. And we want to make sure that there's as many opportunities for the public to be involved in that process as possible. So one of the things that we've been doing is following other school districts that are a little bit ahead of us in terms of having made the decision to retire a mascot and shamelessly stealing some of the best ideas that we see them have and taking advantage of what appears to be working well. And because they have a little bit of a head start on us, we're able to read the news coverage and see which districts are having some success with the ideas that they've put forward for how they're going through this process. So I hope to have something for you to react to at the next board meeting with a little more specificity. But that's something that we've been working on at a draft level internally, just to keep you up to speed on that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rogers. Okay, we're going to move on to the Board of Ed updates. Lisa, do you want to give that, please?
Last week, the New York State School Boards Association offered a webinar on legal and policy implications of school board committees. A few of us were able to attend online. Jack, do you want to give just an overview for the board on what that webinar was about?
Sure. I sent the slides around to everybody so they could see the presentation. I'd say really there were three main sort of areas that they covered in the webinar. Number one were sort of the legal and open meeting law limitations and requirements of committee use by whichever kind of committee we would form or would be formed at any school district, the practical applications of how school boards use committees and the pluses and minuses about some of those uses. And then the last would be the documents that are required and the charters and things that we would need to adopt and resolutions to form them. And I mean, I had 2 or 3 takeaways. So one of the ones that I found that was interesting was that they highlighted that some version of many or most, let's say many districts use school district committees. Not all of them do, but many did. And that then when they sent out a survey to ask how many school districts were using them, they said the most common number of committees that were being used were 3 or 4. Number 2, one of the interesting things that came out, or that I thought was an interesting implication of using committees, was that it allows for participation for everyone on the board, although it doesn't, committees don't end up having final say. It's only recommendations that get sent back to the board. So no different than this conversation, somebody reporting back on something that happened that they viewed or listened to or gathered information from. So that the idea being that it allows folks to dig deeper and spread the work, but no ultimate decisions get made in those scenarios. And that number 3, that one of the most important considerations is that if we're going to form committees, that the charters be well thought out and specified. And NYSBA actually provided, for the first time that I saw, draft charter handouts, which would really facilitate the ease with which we could create committees if that was a way that we wanted to go. And those are 3 takeaways I had from the webinar.
I'm just going to interrupt for a second. If anyone else is hearing the screaming of young voices, do not be alarmed. There is a championship volleyball game going on in the gym right now, and folks are enthusiastic. So this is normal, this is expected, or all is well. Sorry, Mr. Rotolo.
Nope, thank you very much, Dr. Rogers. We're going to move on. There are no legislative items. Next is audience to the public. Please read the statement on the agenda to become familiar with our procedures. The Syosset Board of Education and the Administration welcomes your attention at the Board of Education meetings. Audience to the public affords our residents of the district the opportunity to address the Board of Education. The residents must enter their full name and address into the register located at the microphone before they speak. Each resident will have 4 minutes to address the Board of Education. The board will not permit polling of any individual board members by speakers. After each resident wishing to speak has had the opportunity to do so, the Board of Education and/or the administration will do their best to provide responses to the residents' questions and comments. After each resident has had a chance to speak, the chair may recognize residents who wish to address the Board of Education for a second time after their initial 4-minute turn. No speaker is permitted to address issues concerning any individual students or any individual teachers or staff members. All in audience at the Board of Education's public meeting must conduct themselves in a respectful manner. Hi.
Hi. My name is Rosemary Rosenblum. I live at 289 Southwood Circle in Syosset. And I am here with one of my neighbors, actually to enlist your support and the support of hopefully the PTA about an issue of traffic safety. On Thursday night last week, we went to a Town of Oyster Bay Planning Board meeting where they were discussing the plan for a truck parking facility to be constructed on the site where Village Heroes and Ralph's Ices was. It's 80 Jericho Turnpike. And we went there thinking it was going to be a fairly benign meeting and walked out of there incensed by the fact that this is actually, we think, going to be an Amazon distribution, trucking, third-party trucker, logistics company that is going to be housing, I shouldn't say housing, using this property as an active parking lot for 112 tractor trailers, 42 tractor trailer cabs, and 80 cars of employee truck drivers coming on and off the site every day. So from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. And so, in thinking about the traffic nightmare that is Jericho Turnpike on a good day, and coupled that with the fact that there's plenty of buses, both from Jericho schools and Syosset schools, who use Jericho Turnpike all the time, and thinking about tractor trailers trying to make left-hand turns when you go west on Jericho into this facility, and trucks that are coming eastbound, we're just a wreck about what this could potentially be in terms of traffic. There was no stipulation in the potential contract that they could not use Robbins Lane, that they could not use South Oyster Bay Road, or that there were any time restrictions on this project at all. So we, I think, made enough noise to convince the planning board to adjourn. And within the next 30 days, they plan to reconvene to rediscuss this contract that is impending. And so I know that I think the council, PTA council, must have sent emails to all the units, and quite a few of the units have emailed the membership with links to how to respond to the town. But we're here tonight to ask you guys to step in and maybe send representation of yourselves or of the school board attorney to really stand up for the community and the traffic safety issues that, to say nothing of the air pollution issues, the emissions issues, the impact that it's going to have on the community as a whole, but mostly about the safety of the kids in school buses that are traveling that road every day. Thank you. Did you want to add something?
Thank you, Rosemary, one, for going to the town meeting, and then for bringing it up to our attention. We appreciate that. Anyone else?
Hi, Board of Education. My name is Lou Anchu, and I have two daughters who are attending Syosset High School. I'm here to request the board to allow a foreign exchange student to come from Japan to attend the Syosset school next year. I know Iris Franklin has been emailing the school board about allowing the student to attend, and she has provided, like documentation and paperwork for the board's review, but she has not received a response. And I note that under the school admissions policy 5150, foreign exchange students with J1 visas are allowed to attend if they meet certain criteria. And I note that there's like certain criteria that one is the foreign exchange student must be a secondary school student in his or her home country who has not completed more than 11 years of primary or secondary study. And Kiku, the foreign exchange student at issue is Kiku Nakagawa. Oh, I'm sorry. So the student at issue, she is 15 years old and we will turn 16. She'll be entering 9th grade this next school year. Okay. Well, she's not a student yet, but she's petitioning to. Okay. But I guess my question is, the school policy does allow for foreign exchange students to attend the Syosset school, high school, if it's requested by a parent. So I'm asking for consideration for the school board to consider allowing her to attend the Syosset High School next year. Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tanya Getz, and I'm a resident of Syosset, and I am the wife of a 1976 Syosset High School alum, and also my daughter graduated in 2021 from Syosset High School, and I have a freshman student at Syosset High School now. And so one of the things that I wanted to discuss is an issue that relates to supports addressed in the foundation plan that was presented tonight. But this issue extends to students that are not visibly struggling academically or have disabilities. In a June 1st, 2023 opinion column published in the New York Times, Let's Smash the College Admissions Process, David Brooks notes that research shows that across industries, the correlation between grades and job performance is modest in the first year after college and trivial within a handful of years. Brooks then writes that we created this academic pressure cooker that further disadvantages those from the wrong kind of families and leaves even the straight-A students stressed and burned out. My daughter had overall a positive experience at Syosset High School. There's no doubt, and I've discussed that in previous meetings. I discussed that I saw flaws in the transition process as an CUNY full-time faculty member who, deals with students across all, coming from all kinds of New York City high schools. I have a lot of experience dealing with adolescents, especially freshmen. But one of the things I noticed also at my daughter's time at SHS was the parent portal. And I was struck by the sheer number of individual grades populating the parent portal. It was so very different from my experience of high school, graduating in 1983, and from my husband's experience here at Syosset High School. Both my husband and I felt the sheer number of grades had not improved the high school experience. My husband at SHS in his senior year was able to audit an AP English class taught by Miss Esslinger, who's still here, not to get a grade, but just to learn the content. That's it. Such a thing was not even allowed at Syosset in my daughter's time. I know we asked. So I thought of Brooks' column today, however, when I looked at my son's fourth quarter grades. In one of his core classes on the portal were listed 8 test grades, 33 homework test grades for Q4. Assuming 24 students in his class, that would mean that a teacher would have to input 984 grades into the portal for a single class. If this teacher taught 5 classes this past year, that would be inputting 4,920 grades across that teacher's classes. And what I think that all this data entry takes away from is student-teacher interaction. How many of us, as adults in this room, remember having a parent portal during their high school years? These portals only began when technology made them possible. But I think this tech means students become too easily evaluated by the content of their grades rather than their characters, and talents that are less easily quantified, such as creativity. I loved Miss Kang's speech here tonight because she emphasized her parents' background and her story of interrupting her college degree to work, not just her academic credentials. This generation of high school students, all right, so I lost time. Can I finish? Okay. This generation of high school students has been shown to not drive as early, to not take jobs as early in high school. And I would argue it's because they are so busy doing grades, and the volume of grades teacher inputs is really, in my opinion, remarkable. And I would love the Dr. Rogers, you do amazing data presentations here. I'd love you to look at the data that teachers have to input across their sections, all of their classes. And it's right there on the portal. And I think that would give you some insight, perhaps, into where teachers could find more time to do face-to-face interaction with students, because it's that mentoring that is so important for faculty to students. And it's what students remember. I know my high school teachers, I remember for what they said to me about my writing, about my class discussions, and not the grades they gave me. And so, and I just want to end with Joni Mitchell's. Joni Mitchell just gave her first concert and after a brain aneurysm, and she's come back and retaught herself. And anyway, I just want to close with some of the lines from Woodstock, which is her 1969 song. Well then, can I walk beside you? I have come to lose the smog, and I feel myself a cog in something turning. And maybe it's the time of year, yes, and maybe it's the time of man, and I don't know who I am, but life is for learning. We are stardust, we are golden. We are billion-year-old carbon, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden. And metaphorically, I think we could do some work on getting back to the education garden and more interpersonal connection. Thank you so much.
So I'll address these out of order if you don't mind. So first, Ms. Shu, can we be sure to get your contact information? I'm copied on every email that the board gets. I don't recall getting an email from anyone seeking. So Mr. Laverso from my team will make sure, or Ms. Heffron will make sure to get some contact information from you so that we can be in touch with you. And we'll certainly review the circumstances. This is the first time I'm aware of it. I know the board's not aware of it either because I would have seen any emails that they got. So, but we'll certainly work with you on this, and don't leave here without giving some contact information to someone. So, Ms. Rosenblum, thanks for bringing this to my attention. The first I had heard about it was today. This was 80 Jericho Turnpike was originally supposed to be a mixed-use facility that was going to have some senior housing and some residential apartments. The school board had actually secured a mitigation payment from the developer to pay for the cost of the additional enrollment that would be expected here. I had anticipated that that project was going to get built. Obviously, COVID intervened, and then the project was never approved, and the property was sold off, but I didn't know for what and to whom. So I won't hold myself out as an expert on traffic, but what I'll certainly do is talk to our bus company and describe the scale of the project to them and see if they identify any safety concerns with it. Obviously, we rely on them to be experts in their business. And I'll share with the board whatever I learn from Huntington Coach. And then, the board has, obviously, I won't speak for the board, but, I'll provide you with information. You decide, obviously, what you want to do with that. But I do know that there have been some frustrations with the Amazon warehouse on Robbins Lane, and that some of the predictions for how the traffic would flow on Robbins Lane have not gone as originally planned, and that has created some somewhat hazardous conditions, particularly near the railroad tracks. So I see both of these as kind of being of a piece in terms of wanting to make sure that our navigation on the roads is not impeded when the buses are out. So certainly thank you for bringing that to our attention. And then lastly, Ms. Getz, I will certainly look into the parent portal. I'll confess I don't spend lots of time on it, but it would be, I think, a useful exercise for me to do a little bit of a deep dive and, certainly look at it for myself, but have some conversations with teachers about what they see as its strengths and opportunities for improvement. So thank you for bringing it to my attention, and thank you, too, for sharing poetry with us this evening. So.
And I guess I can speak on behalf of the board. Several of our board members, through the whole process of Amazon and even before with Sousa Park, were very concerned about safety of the buses, the traffic, the air pollution, making left turns. These were all items that obviously we were concerned about. Yes, I think anything that we can find out and you can bring to the board, obviously having some representation there, like we usually do, because it concerns our children's safety. So thank you. Susan?
I just want to say I think time is of the essence. I think she said that it's 30 days.
Yeah, they said within 30 days
Within-
from last Thursday, but we don't have a date yet.
So we're down to like 23 days, whatever it is, 25 days. I think it's very concerning to have all those trucks back and forth on Jericho Turnpike for so many reasons. I mean, kids walk on there, and that's a lot of trucks from 7 in the morning to 11 at night every single day. So they ride their bikes, they're all over, and so, and if they're on South Oyster Bay Road, there are kids there all the time. We've had tragedies on South Oyster Bay Road. We certainly don't need any or want any more tragedies. So whatever can be done, I would be in favor of us doing. She just wanted to add that.
Hi, my name is Susan Cohn, and I had gone to the meeting with Rosemary, and that meeting was supposed to be, like she said, just kind of 1, 2, 3, and they were supposed to approve everything. The sale has already gone through. It was just whether or not they had, or what their future plan was for going along with certain guidelines. But what struck us most at the meeting was they're planning, and they're saying that they can fit 2 tractor-trailer trucks in a non-turning lane. So if they're going westbound on Jericho Turnpike, right after Underhill Boulevard, that they're going to be able to cross over 2 lanes of traffic going in the opposite direction and have another tractor-trailer sitting there waiting on the road. And we had brought up that traffic between the hours of 3 and now it's like 7 is so unbelievably bad, especially in that one area, because they had already approved. We've got that new restaurant, which is great, Hilltop, everyone should go. However, when Hilltop was approved, they were approved to have a space that would only occupy as many people, house as many people as the Friendlies had before it. And when it was built, it was like double that. And then they went to the town for a variance. And now we have a huge problem at that light. And then you go to the next light, which is Lidl, and in front of North Ritz Club, the traffic does not move. There was another couple there that was living in the neighborhood. I'm not sure what that neighborhood is. And they said that daily they sit and they can't get out of their development, and the bus drivers tell them this is a nightmare. It is like a horrific accident waiting to happen, because they have to inch out of the neighborhood, inch out into traffic to try to get the traffic to stop for them. We just said to the town, what could you be thinking? You could have never driven that part of Jericho Turnpike at those hours to have ever approved this sale. So it is pretty.
The other crazy part is, like, in terms of how they're mitigating, like, the traffic, they want the trucks to come up Jericho Turnpike going east at 106, 107 by the Millerage Inn, up the up ramp, and, the lanes over there converge from 3 to 2 very quickly. And then they're only going to allow them right turns out of the facility, and they want the trucks to go back on the LIE via the 135 entrance by the animal hospital. You know how long that
HBT,
okay?
yeah.
That is where they want the trucks to go back onto the 135 to get back to the LIE. So you're talking about the entire stretch of Jericho Turnpike from when you get on at the Millerage Inn to where they would get off at 135.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, you guys. It's been a late night for you all, right?
Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to new business. A items is A1 through A2 can be taken together. They are the approvals of staff changes for the 2022-2023 stipend and hourly rates. Can I have a motion, please? Lynn, seconded by Shawnee. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A3 is the appointment of summer guidance counselors. Can I have a motion, please? Lisa, seconded by Susan. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A4 is the approval of the unaligned staff salary adjustments. Can I have a motion, please? Brian, seconded by Shawnee. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A5 is the approval of unaligned staff employment agreement. Can I have a motion, please? Susan, seconded by Lisa. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A6 is the approval of driver's education coordinator and instructors for the 2023-2024 school year. Can I have a motion, please? Susan, seconded by Anna. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A7 and A8 we've already done. Move on to A9 is the approval of the supervision rates. Can I have a motion, please? Anna, seconded by Lisa. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we'll go on to B items. B1 and B2 can be taken together. They're the approval of the Committee on Special Education recommendations and the approval of the Committee of Preschool Special Education recommendations. Can I have a motion, please? Lynn, seconded by Shawnee. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A3 is the acceptance of the district-wide school safety team. Can I have a motion, please? Susan, seconded by Lisa. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Dr. Rogers.
Since you have now appointed the two principals for Bayless Elementary and Willits Elementary School, would the board like to amend this resolution to include their names on the...
Yes.
So would you please ask for a motion from someone to amend the resolution, please?
So may I have a motion to amend the district-wide school safety plan and adding, okay, Brian and Lynn? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions?
And then now on the motion, on the resolution itself, you've amended it, and now you just have to pass it.
Okay. So can I have a motion?
You do have a motion, Ms. Falkov and Ms. Kashia. You just need a vote.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you so much.
B4 is the acceptance of the certification of the vote. Can I have a motion, please? Shawnee, seconded by Brian. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B4 and B6 can be taken together. They're the appointment. I'm sorry. B5 and B6 can be taken together. They're the appointment of the board registration for the 2023 and 2024 and the approval of the destruction of last year's cast ballots. Can I have a motion, please? Lynn, seconded by Shawnee. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B7 is the second reading of the policy for acceptable use. Can I have a motion, please? Shawnee, seconded by Brian. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We will move on to C items. C1 is the authorization for the service contract. Can I have a motion, please? Susan, seconded by Anna. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C2 is the authorization for special education and nursing contracts. Can I have a motion, please? Lynn, seconded by Brian. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C3 is the authorization for health and welfare services. Can I have a motion, please? Lisa, seconded by Anna. By Susan. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C4 is the tax anticipation note resolution of the Syosset Central School District of New York. Can I have a motion, please? Lynn, seconded by Brian. Okay, so for this one, it's a roll call, so I'm going to call on you individually to approve and being in favor. Lynn, you're in favor?
You would just say aye.
Aye, okay. Brian? Shawnee? Carol? Tom, aye. Lisa?
Aye.
Anna? Susan?
Aye.
And Jack?
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Okay. C5 is the authorization to establish limit to fund budgetary reserves for the year ending 2023-2024. Can I have a motion, please? Anna, seconded by Lisa. Does anybody have any questions? Jack?
So Dr. Rogers, can you just briefly summarize what we're doing here for me?
I'd be happy to. So every year, the board authorizes a not-to-exceed amount for us to put into the reserves. And we won't know what that amount is until we get to the end of the school year and we see what unexpended funds remain, but these will be the funds that we use to replenish the reserves. I don't think that the number is going to be anywhere near 13 million. Our practice has been to calculate what the maximum amount is that we would be permitted to put into the reserves and then use that as the maximum authorization. But you won't be able to replenish the reserves with anything more than what's left over at the end of the school year. I don't want to give you an exact figure because Dr. Rufo and I talked about this, and I don't think we have an exact figure, but it's going to be a much lower number than this. And as we've talked about during the budget process, we experienced unanticipated inflation during the current school year, so I suspect that what we'll be able to replenish in reserves will be less than what we've typically been able to do to replenish. So this is only a limit. You'll have at some point in the future, once Dr. Rufo is done with the budget and the auditors have affirmed her figures, then we will have an actual resolution to put the actual amount into the reserves. This is just a maximum authorization, which I'm confident we will not get anywhere near.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Anyone else have any questions on this? No? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C6 is the authorization for insurance policies. Can I have a motion, please? Susan, seconded by Anna. Does anybody have any questions? Jack?
Sure.
Dr. Rufo, would you mind?
Certainly. There are no substantive changes to the types of insurance. The only change that noteworthy is the increase, which we talked about during the budget process.
Anybody else have a question? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C7 is the authorization for Construction Change Directive 001, Cooper Power and Lighting Corp. May I have a motion, please? Susan, seconded by Lisa. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C8 is the acceptance of the audit report for year ending December 31st, 2022. Can I have a motion, please? Lynn, seconded by Brian. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C9 is the authorization for grant agreement. May I have a motion, please? Anna, seconded by Lisa. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? C10 is the authorization for award of bids. May I have a motion, please? Lynn, seconded by Shawnee. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C11 is the acceptance of donations of a little library, decorative fence, cups, and a book. Can I have a motion, please? Susan, seconded by Anna. Does anybody have any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C12 is the authorization for the disposal of broken, surplus, and/or obsolete equipment and/or books. May I have a motion, please? Shawnee, seconded by Carol. Does anybody have any questions? Brian, do you have a question? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? May I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Have a good night.